Hi, welcome back to Two Minds Unfiltered.
And today we're talking about H.H. Holmes.
Holmes. Did you pronounce the H like that?
Holmes.
You said Holmes. What?
I was just trying to
Holmes.
enunciate Holmes.
Holmes.
It's a pretty interesting case, I fear. I sounded so old. I think I just transported myself back to the 1800s. I fear. I said it with
Hi. Oh my god. I think my stool is actually backwards. Yeah, that feels a lot more stable now. I think I killed her.
Because I wasn't paying attention.
No, you weren't!
He's, not to jump, but he's known as the first American serial killer.
Yes.
Now obviously take that with a grain of salt.
Well, this case takes place in the 1800s.
Yeah, so you can imagine why they would assume this is the first serial killer. I'm sure there was probably other serial killers out there, but they were never ever put out into the public. He was known as that. That's what they know him as. So if you hear us calling him that, it's not because it's 100% factual. It's just he was known.
He's probably like the first one that went out in the media.
Yeah, that
of
got
the day.
captured in the media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we get started? So H.H. Holmes was born as Herman Webster Mudgett.
Yeah, can you imagine having your last name be Mudgett?
Right?
I don't blame him for wanting to change his name.
No. He was born on May 16th in 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. He's better known as Henry Howard Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
Holmes. I did it.
Apparently he changed it because first of all, he wanted to be known as a doctor, because obviously...
Right, it's later. Dr. Henry...
Henward! Dr. Henry Howard Holmes. Yes. I don't know where he got the Henry Howard from, but I know he got the Holmes from Sherlock Holmes.
There's nothing like it.
No, not even close.
Yeah. And he was technically classified as the first American serial killer, like we said, but he was also an American con artist.
Yes, that was his main, for a long time, yeah.
Well, yeah. And he was active between the years of 1891 and 1894. Mm-hmm. By the time he was executed, he had engaged in a lengthy career in crime. So that included insurance fraud, forgery, swindling, 3 to 4 bigamous marriages, which I actually had to look that up. That means, do you know what that means?
No, actually, I don't really know that.
I looked it up. So this is the, I know monogamy and polygamy,
yeah.
But I didn't know bigamous. So this means it's in a culture where only monogamous relationships are legally recognized. Bigamy is the act of entering into a marriage with one person while still legally married to another.
Okay, I thought so. I thought that because you only stayed legally married to one person.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I thought that's what it was, but I wasn't sure, so I looked it up. So that is...
I just didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah. Okay. And get this. He also engaged in horse theft.
Yes.
Yeah, mm-hmm. GTA of the time.
Yeah, and he did a little bit of a cattle theft too, but he returned them when he was a kid.
Yeah. And he also engaged in murder.
Oh, yeah.
As we will get into.
Obviously, that's why we talk about him.
Yes.
Like you said with his alias, but, Holmes, being his new name that he wanted. He went by a lot of names.
He was a con artist, so that makes sense.
Yes. I will just read off some of them because I mean, obviously, as we go through, you'll hear some, but he has quite a lot, and I just want to like read them all off as we go because I won't probably say all of them. So we have H.H. Holmes, we have Alexander Bond, which he used that one for quite a while.
Like James Bond.
Yes, America's first serial killer, like we said. The Beast of Chicago, the Devil in the White City. That is his most other notorious name that he gets called a lot. And the Torture Doctor, which I find that gave me a chill. And then the Archfiend. And Judson. Don't know. I really don't know where that one.
I don't know where that came from. Maybe it was like he was trying to pull off a con, and he just was like, "I'll use this name."
It was probably just someone's name. And then Robert E. Phelps. So he went by a lot of different names, as you will find out later in this.
I mean, he did go to medical school.
He did, but he barely passed.
And we'll get into it a little bit more. You know, the specifics of medical school that he attended, because I thought that was very interesting. As I read into it, I was like, He was the United States' first serial killer, but I'm a little bit skeptical of this because, yes, he technically could be a serial killer, but to me, when I looked into it a little bit more, the definition of a serial killer is very specific. To be a serial killer, you have had to have killed 3 or more people over more than a month. He could be a serial killer, but it's confirmed 1 victim, but there's like suspected like 9 plus.
Well, yeah, because they found human remains.
Right.
They just can't identify who.
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
I think he is a serial killer.
I think I don't know.
Because the thing, it's just like he killed a lot of people.
He did. I'm just having a hard time with that one, but that's also like my skeptic mind. I'm like,
Well, it's hard because it is such a long time ago that there's not as many instruments that we would use to now identify a serial killer as they could.
We'll get into his background and like his home life and things like that. He had 2 older siblings. Ellen and Arthur.
Yep.
And his father was less than ideal.
His father was trash. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He was a heavy drinker. He cruelly mistreated his family. He starved the kids and forced them into isolation.
Yeah, and did you see that he would put a cloth over their face with what's it?
Chloroform.
I don't know if it was chloroform. I will put an actual word of it. But he would like to quiet them, like to shut them up. He would like drug them. So they were both there. This is the mid 1800s. So a lot of populations were very Catholic or
very religious communities.
Well, they were devout Methodists. All right, and he was obviously we know he didn't have an ideal relationship with his father because he was abusive. He was a drinker, and his father was like having many jobs. They were a farmer, and he was a house painter, and he had like many different jobs. Clearly, he couldn't keep a solid job.
Right.
And obviously the mom was almost a little bit just as strict, but just maybe not as abusive. So he kind of became a mama's boy, because he didn't have a loving father.
While he was in school, he suffered from, he was like subjected to a lot of bullying because he was exceptionally academically gifted.
Yes.
And back then it was seen as kind of like, oh, you're weird, like you're good at this, you're not like everyone else.
Yeah, you're like a sissy,
Yeah. In one of these incidences, he was forced to put his hands on a skeleton's face.
Yes, because they knew that every time he'd walk by it, he was terrified of that skeleton. So they used it against him.
And this actually had a counter effect.
I was gonna say they kind of screwed up.
Yeah, this kind of set into motion his fascination with death.
Yes.
It resulted in him becoming obsessed with death, and then he began dissecting animals. So it really set into motion the torture side of him.
I was gonna say I don't mean to say that like they are the ones that created the monster, but they
had a key and they unlocked the
lock. But the thing is that like would it have happened anyway? Eventually, just in a different scenario. but like they didn't help by like forcing it upon him, and then he was like, because he even said it was like the moment it changed his entire life because it kind of desensitized him to death.
Yeah.
And he was fascinated with, and he's like, that's what made me want to do medicine.
I think maybe.
I think so because
yeah.
I mean, not to say he wouldn't have maybe turned out the same way, but I really don't think this helped.
Oh no, it definitely
all.
didn't.
So I kind of blame anything. The kids. I kind of blame the kids.
Yeah, pretty much.
So while this was after he was now, pretty well into, death and all things like that. This is while he was like dissecting animals, which he would sneak into his house, by the way, and kids would still pick on him because they would say that he smelled like death.
Yeah.
Because he smelled horrible, apparently.
Here comes the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, honestly.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't use that name.
I know, I'm surprised that nickname didn't get tossed around, but maybe it did. Who knows?
So it said that he smelled really bad, and so he earned himself a nice nickname, Schmegma.
And if you don't know what that means, I'm not putting up the definition. You can look that up yourself.
Yeah. We can put up the definition.
Okay, just for a warning.
Yeah, it's not great, but hey, it is gross. But Schmegma.
Holmes was a loner, alright? He was always isolated, obviously, from his parents isolating, so he wasn't the best at being social. He didn't have the social cues. Yeah. But apparently one day, him and his friend Thomas were playing on an abandoned house, as one does in the 1800s, because what else is there to
do? No iPad kids.
Exactly. So apparently, Thomas fell off the roof and died. And this was the first time he's ever had a real look at like actual death. And it kind of also continued to spark. Yeah. But the thing is, some people are saying, I don't know, I wonder if he pushed him off because he wanted to see what a dead body would look like. Because this was after he was already very fascinated by death.
Like that obsession has
because grown. I get you're on an old building, so it very well could have broken. He could have fell off, but at the same time, like he just randomly falls off to his death while hanging out with Holmes. I don't know. Just
kind of sus.
I know.
A little bit sus.
So that could have been his first kill. Could have been.
You never know.
You never know.
In 1882, he transferred to the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery. He didn't do very well.
No, he was at the bottom of the list. They debated twice. They went back twice to see if they would let him pass.
Yeah. He graduated in June of 1884. So while he worked in the anatomy lab under Professor William James Herdman, the chief anatomy instructor at the time, it was said that the two of them engaged in grave robbing to supply the medical cadavers.
Yep.
And just don't do that. You can get cadavers that have been donated to science. That's the whole point. You just don't. I don't know. Don't do that. Don't go grave robbing. He had apprenticed in New Hampshire under White. He was a noted advocate of human dissection. I will say, I've never dissected a human. I have taken anatomy classes.
Nope, I don't want to.
I kind of do. I think it would be cool to see how the human body works, but that's also my biology side of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved anatomy, so. But that's purely for scientific purposes.
Yeah,
this
not
was
for
more
purposes.
Psychologically
messed up.
Yeah.
Well, because back then most of their medical work was solely on cadavers. They were doing 3 to 4 autopsy, type.
Oh, classes. I would hope it'd be on cadavers, not living people.
But I'm just saying that they were having those all the time. That was because they were doing hands-on every single day for all these classes.
Sit on your hands.
And and so basically that was his favorite part. He loved doing the hands-on work.
That's the best part of anatomy, though, is getting to do dissections and actually getting to like physically do something and get that hands-on experience, that is the pinnacle of what anatomy and physiology is. Just to see the actual inner working. This is one thing to look at a diagram and be like, okay, yeah, this is your carotid, this is your like aortic, like whatever. But like seeing it in real life on like a body is just a different experience.
But the thing is, like, he wasn't looking for the sense of like, I want to see how the human body works. He was like, oh my gosh, this is like the coolest thing ever. Seeing him,
exactly.
But like you said with the grave robbing, that kind of set in stone for the rest of his like con artist career.
Yeah, exactly.
So when he was right before he got into university, he met Clara Lovering, which is his wife. They got married. They met when they were younger. She came from a wealthy family. Well, he was always kind of a man looking to get, pocket money because he wanted to be able to go to medical school.
Right.
Because it was really expensive. It was like $100 per class back then, which
is a lot of money.
Yes, that's like equivalent to.
Let me look it up.
I was gonna say probably thousands. So he was kind of strategic in that because let's not forget he was a con artist from the start.
Okay. $2,500 in today's money.
Okay, so yeah, for them with the inflation and everything, because the economy was booming around this time.
Yeah.
So it hurt because he didn't come from big money.
No.
So he needed to be strategic in that way, and anything that could get me money, I will lie for it.
Oh yeah. Pathological liar.
Exactly. So when he met Clara, he's like, oh well, like I gotta wear it. Like, mind you, he's not a bad looking guy. Okay. He was known as a really attractive guy back then. Like all the ladies, he was mustache. A ladies' man. Yeah. Oh, so they married. They had a child. He used her family's money to go to medical school. Now, I will say, in medical school, he had a roommate. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. Who apparently was a little weirded out by Holmes.
I mean, I would be too.
Well, because Holmes would bring back some of the bodies into his dorm room underneath his bed to study more later.
Study more later.
Exactly. So it would make their room smell really weird. Holmes apparently got mad one time that he touched his like stash gel one time and like totally flipped out on his roommate. Because he's very ornery about his stuff because he used to cheap his way out of stuff.
Right, exactly.
And then he would live the life of a bachelor. He would flirt with all the ladies in school. He basically so he told his roommate, I am married, but don't tell anyone.
Sneaky.
Yeah. And actually when he got out of college, he later tried to get engaged to another girl, but then someone snitched and told him, no, he's married, and he got pissed.
Oh, well, I mean, if you're trying to like, I don't know, do that, yeah, I would get pissed too.
Yeah, so he was living the life of a bachelor when he wasn't a bachelor.
Scummy.
That. Yeah. So basically, he didn't change his name until he moved to Chicago. Because the whole backstory. So basically, after he graduated from medical school and became a doctor, his one friend at the time, they would swindle and do life insurances and stuff like that. This kind of goes back to when he would do grave robbing at the university. Right. It was his source of income. So he knew how to stage cadavers to look like others for this purpose. So one of his classmates or friends, whoever, asked him to help him and his family fake their death so that they could take out a life-saving of $40,000. And he promised that after helping him, he would get half of it. So
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, so he grabbed 3 bodies from the university. Like he would literally come in every single day looking for bodies that looked similar to these people. He grabbed one male, 1 woman, and 1 child. And so he staged them so that it would, but then he wrote on there that he was the main beneficiary. So basically, after doing this, apparently while he was trying to find the bodies, he actually almost went insane because he was looking, he said, and this is from his book too, because he wrote an autobiography. Of course he did. He was saying that
not that you can really trust that.
No, but like, of course, he wrote one. Like,
right, exactly.
He was basically saying that he was looking at so many dead bodies that he actually started to like lose his mind.
Yeah.
And he claimed that he wanted to off himself at one point, and he told someone, and they told the police, and so they actually sent him to the insane asylum for
a loony bin.
Yeah, for like a few months. But after he moved, he was kind of lost in himself, and he was like, "How can I get more money?"
Right.
And so his big plan was to fake his own death. Sorry.
I told you to sit on your hands.
He sent fake divorce papers to his wife, because then at least it gave a motive of like,
declare, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that try to tie up fake loose ends.
Right.
He got on a train and he left, and I think he got a good sum. I think he got another 22,000 for himself dying. And then when he got to Chicago, he changed his name to obviously H.H.Holmes.
Yes.
And he started his con from then. He had many jobs. Okay.
He was just like, I don't know what happened there.
I don't know. At one point, he worked at an insane asylum for a little bit, which was funny.
Wow.
Yeah. And then he actually worked at a lot of drugstore places, but they weren't getting him any money.
Right.
And then he even opened up a barber shop at one point.
I did see that.
Yeah.
I was like, interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure. Like pretty soon after he arrived there, he came across a drugstore at the northwest corner of South Wallace Ave and West 63rd Street in Englewood, in Chicago. And the drugstore's owner, Elizabeth Holton, she gave him a job. Because he proved himself to be a hardworking employee. Mm-hmm. And he eventually bought the store.
They couldn't keep it anymore. They wanted to sell it, so he convinced them that he should sell it to them, or to Holmes. Sorry.
Yeah, it says here, contrary to several accounts, Holmes did not actually kill Dr. E.S.
No, yeah, he did die from old age. Yeah, he just conned his way to all of a sudden be like, "Oh, well, you should sell it to me. I'll take good care of it and stuff like that."
Holmes then purchased an empty lot across the street where construction began in 1887 for a 2-story mixed-use building with apartments on the second floor and retail spaces, including a new drugstore on the first. He also declined to pay architects and the steel company.
Yeah, he would continuously fire them after like 2 months of working. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he didn't. First of all, he found out that if you fire them soon enough while they're working, you don't have to pay them.
Exactly.
And he didn't want them to know what he was doing.
Right.
So he would.
But the Iron and Steel Company actually took him to court in 1888.
Yeah.
In 1892, he added a 3rd floor, telling investors and suppliers he intended to use it as a hotel during the upcoming World's Columbian Exposition.
Yeah. This place was like a maze.
Oh, yeah.
And it was
I've seen like schematics of the building.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ. It's pretty chilling, honestly, knowing what he built those rooms for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He built his hotel to lure tourists and that were visiting the exposition in order to kill them and sell their skeletons to the medical schools.
Skeletons and bodies.
Exactly. Because, he got into that, like, business kind of like, grave robbing. And so now he's like, oh, well, I can supply them now.
Well, yeah, because they kind of showed him, like, this one, the guy that you're talking about at the university, when he told them, like, I sometimes go grave robbing to get these. He kind of set up this idea in Holmes' head where he's like, best of both worlds. I can get money, a lot of money.
And I have experience in this.
I can have my fun and my fantasy with dead bodies, because he only saw now bodies as a way of money.
Right.
Which is really dangerous for him, obviously.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Like you said, he had a lot of experience and a major obsession with death in general. So, like, he had experience grave robbing, and now he's like, oh, well, I'll just take that and make money.
I was saying, I can make a huge profit out of this.
Exactly.
Heck yeah.
He gets the bodies for free because he kills them, and then you make a profit off of it.
Exactly. So, like, it was probably the best of both worlds for him.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. He didn't start off murdering
No,
people.
he didn't.
He only took them from previously dead people.
Which, not
great,
better.
but it would have been better than to kill.
Exactly.
He would get their life insurance and the cell. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But there's no evidence that Holmes actually killed the exposition goers on the premise.
I would beg to differ a little bit on that one.
Yeah. The Yellow Press labeled the building as Holmes Murder Castle.
Yep.
Claiming that the structure contained secret torture chambers, trap doors, gas chambers, and a basement crematorium.
Yeah, but he called it a what did he call it? Instead of a crematorium, he called it a kiln.
Yes.
It was basically a huge kiln.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. And also he had like gas chambers, but like okay, so his top floor was basically the maze where he would, have all these people and kill, and he had doors where he had a system that he had like these like in vents where he could like put gas with to suffocate them while they're in their rooms because he would lock their rooms. So in their rooms, when he would gas them in their rooms to make it look like a natural death, because he can't sell bodies that look like they were anything but natural.
Right.
He would chloroform them so that it would look like they died in their sleep. Already creepy.
It's almost like before the
I know exactly what you're saying, but I
concentration camps.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
I
needed that little belief.
I wanted you to say it because I was like, I'm not going to steal the thunder for that one, but I knew where you were going. Yeah. But yes, it is essentially like that.
Before the World War II.
Yes. And then his second floor was for his offices and his own personal rooms.
Right.
And mind you, he needed to figure out a system to get these bodies in like down to the basement without anyone seeing him.
Right.
So he had these little trapdoors and chutes.
I was gonna say almost like laundry chutes.
Yes.
Like laundry chutes that just
like oiled up laundry chutes. Yeah. Yeah. So apparently, I watched this video. They actually went really in depth on how the chutes work.
Okay.
So basically, do tell. So basically, on the top floor, it was like this little. You'd go into a room and they had these little trapdoors in the floor, and you would shoot it down, and then he would go to the second floor, the second level, and he would go down to the secret staircase in his room because obviously these were all his like private rooms and stuff like that, and it would like fall onto this like dead body like little landing thing, and then he would take them and he would put another chute that's through a trapdoor onto an autopsy table room is what they called it. And then when he was done with them in there, he would do them down the big chute all the way down to the basement. So it was like a full-on system.
Oh yeah, he was very meticulous about this, and he had it like thought out.
Yeah, but you know how creepy it is knowing that he made the upstairs a labyrinth to confuse guests so that they would end up in like wrong place at the wrong time. Like it's almost like he's like playing with his food.
You know, it's kind of like the Saw movies, and it's like when Amanda takes over and makes the games unwinnable. The premise of like the Saw movie is that you don't value your life, but Jigsaw took you and is like, you either are gonna value your life or you're gonna lose your life.
Yeah.
But like he's basically when Amanda takes over for Jigsaw, and it's like, I don't care. You're gonna die either way.
I was gonna say, I don't care about the whole, like, moral card.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that, like, psychologically that's okay to do, because I don't condone that. No. But the idea that, Jigsaw had an experience, and then he found people that didn't value their own lives, and he's like, I'm gonna make you value that because I couldn't get that.
Yeah.
It's better than whatever he's doing. He's just like, I want dead bodies. Like
his basement, which was known. So he was obsessed with medieval torture devices.
I'm not surprised.
Yes. Also, he had a love for Edgar Allan Poe, mind you.
And his 13-year-old cousin.
Yeah.
Niece.
Yeah.
Niece.
Yeah. But basically, his basement was like the epitome of a torture chamber.
Oh, like, yeah.
He had
think of like a dungeon in like the medieval times.
Yeah, it was like stone built. Like it literally looked like he actually formed it around the idea of medieval dungeons. Actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So basically, he had many rooms. One room was a vault. He had previously used it for his money, but then he changed it into a gas chamber like area where basically he would it would like feed through like I don't know, it was like this chemical. I can't remember the chemical's name. Like I will put all the chemical names up here if I can't remember them.
Before, like, the sensationalized, like, press comments on, like, what his, like, murder castle was, they weren't actually true. But other people have stated that the hotel was made up of over 100, yeah, over 100 rooms, and they were laid out like a maze, like you had said.
Yep.
Doors opening into brick walls,
Mhm.
windowless rooms, and dead-end staircases.
Yep.
In reality, the third floor hotel was moderately sized, largely unremarkable, and uncompleted due to his disputes with the builders. It did contain some hidden rooms, and they were used for hiding furniture Holmes bought on credit but did not intend to pay for.
Yes. Okay. So this was another thing. So that he would do is that he also did this with the vault too because he borrowed it from the bank, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, you didn't do your payments, but the thing is, he purposely had the vault built into his home, like have them build around the vault. So he literally said, he was like, no, yeah, come try and take it out, but if you damage any of my property, I can sue you. And so they're like, yeah, no, okay, we won't. So that's how he got rid of it. Like, he was like that type of con artist. Like, he found the loopholes for everything until he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he wouldn't really prolong their torture, but he would, a few of them, he would starve some of them too before he killed them.
Say he used starvation and then he burnt his victims alive.
Yes. Also, he took time to figure out the way that he wanted to, get rid of these people to sell them.
He crafted his empire.
Yes, because at first, apparently, he bludgeoned someone to death. But then when he later got the skeleton back, he realized, oh, we can't sell this because there can't be any evidence of any type of, like,
He can't sell a skeleton that's literally been mutilated.
And don't forget, he was very smart. He used to play with trinkets when he was a kid and like to invent things. So he knew how to make these torture chambers and stuff like that. So he was like very
real life jigsaw.
Yeah. So he had a room that was basically he would dump in a chemical. I will again put the name up. And it would dissolve their skin down to their bones. He would move them into another room and he would fill it with bleach to whiten their bones. And he hired at the time a friend. It was he was the one that put together all of the skeletons for the class because they had to assemble all the bones. So yeah, he literally hired someone to make these skeletons for him to sell. Never suspected any of where these bodies were coming from all the time. Which how would you?
Why would? Yeah, I feel like you would.
Yeah, I would.
I'd be like,
if you're giving me like 5 a day, I'd be like, where are you getting these from?
He just was like so convincing that people just didn't question him, or they have their suspicions, but they just didn't want to question him because they might disappear.
Exactly, and also, mind you, while this is all happening, he's still he's a womanizer. Yeah. Okay, so he had many lovers, but most of his lovers that he had, he would hire them as like the secretaries, anyways, because he was a big advocate that women should be able to keep jobs. Right. He even created a whole fundraiser for it, and so most would go to him for a job because they knew that they were allowed to. And so he would employ them, but he would have them sign off their life insurance to him as the beneficiary. Just in case anything happened,
always magically did.
Yes. 31-year-old Julia Smythe, who is the wife of Dr. Lawrence Connor, he killed their child Pearl. She was 5 years old, because they
child killer.
So yeah, he killed her for collateral because obviously she knew about the affair and whatnot and stuff like that. And then apparently it ended up she ended up pregnant with Holmes's baby. And
there's a lot of speculation around this, like what exactly happened.
Yes, but they did find children remains down in the basement. But yeah, no. So he convinced her to let him practice on her by giving an abortion. Not knowing that he had another sick and twisted plot, which is he killed them both and sold both of their bodies to schools to be used. Mm. Well, I mean, pretty much the same thing happened with Emmeline too. It was like she got hired there, and then
to be his like secretary.
Yes, and then allegedly she also got pregnant by him and then had an abortion. She was the one that was in the vault, and he put this like weird chemical on her body because he used to do different forms of torture with like different little chemicals that he pour all over them. Mm-hmm. And there was a footprint left on the door from her trying to kick her way out. He would kind of have the same preface every time he would kill women. He would hire them as usually the secretary, start an affair with them, and then kill them. There was only one woman who was a survivor that was his secretary.
Yes, she made it in and out.
Yes, and there's actually like records of her living the rest of her life to show that she was the only one that survived.
Yeah,
him,
which is crazy because imagine like then you find out and you're like, wow, I actually lived through that.
But the funny thing is, you know why she's the only one alive? It's because he was the only one that he couldn't cover up by saying, because so he would claim, after they're dead, that it was just they broke it off with me. It was all so abrupt. I didn't see it coming because he would always pose that they're the one leaving him, and
because, it's always their fault.
Well, yeah, because like they didn't know and they weren't as devout wives as like other ones, but the one that actually survived, he couldn't come up with that lie because everyone saw how devoted, like she was in love with him, and there was no way he would have gotten away with saying she left him because she would never.
Right.
So he had to get rid of her, not by death.
So our next, he was a partner with Herman
Mudgett.
Yeah. But he was a carpenter, but he had a criminal past.
Well, he also was an alcoholic.
Yes.
So he kept changing careers.
Yeah. And he was like right there in it with Holmes in several of his like schemes. He had a sad demise. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, because he
got double crossed.
Yeah, well, because when they first met, he was coming to Holmes as a man of like in desperate need of a job. He had a wife and 5 kids. There we go. Got it wrong the first time. It's like, I need to support them, because otherwise,
right,
I'm a non-decent human. And so he took up the job, and he was that type of guy that kind of like would do anything for money, because he was into such desperate need. So he kind of became his right-hand man.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, mind you, Benjamin was, he was much stockier than Holmes was.
Yeah, Holmes was kind of like lanky. Like, you wouldn't expect him to be like a killer.
No, he was 5'7", 170 pounds.
Soaking wet.
Yes. And Benjamin was this 6'2", tall, muscular man. So like, he was kind of seen as like the henchman.
Right.
He was his muscle. And he was so willing to do anything.
It's like the 1800s version of like the mafia.
Honestly, pretty much. Yeah, because like he was the dirty work person. And he also kept on the business side as well for some things to make sure, it never got crossed. But he met an untimely demise, didn't he?
He did, which is kind of sad because he was in on the plot that ended up killing him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty ironic, honestly.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's like, I mean, I feel bad in the way that he got double crossed, but I don't feel bad that, like, he got what others got demise when they didn't think they were gonna not die.
Right. But I mean, like, he also helped Holmes.
He helped him do all this.
Yeah. Essentially, they had done a lot of cons throughout the years, and they Holmes came up with this scheme to get like an insurance payout.
Yep.
On like a life insurance payout from Benjamin. So he convinced him to take out this large sum of money, $10,000,
for a life insurance policy,
on Benjamin himself. He convinced him to like take it out, and then Benjamin was kind of like, okay, like he was gonna fake his own death, live underground for a little bit, and then let things blow over. but he was going to split this with Holmes. So he had to convince his wife, and she wasn't too keen on the idea.
No,
and
but then she heard the money and she was like, okay.
She was like, all right, I guess we can go along with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. Holmes told him that he was going to find a cadaver that looked like him and, stage the whole thing, and that was going to be that, and then they would all split the money. And he actually got arrested before this. Like, Holmes got arrested before he could carry out this, like, big scheme. So, while he was in jail, he met Marion Hedgepeth, and, he was already, like, a train robber, I think?
Yes, he would, like, hop trains and rob the rich people on them. Yes.
Very
He was pretty
1800s.
famous, and he was pretty famous for it. Everyone knew his name.
Yeah. So, he met him, and he actually, I don't know why he did this. Don't know what made him spill the beans on, like, his scheme.
Oh, yeah, he told him everything.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know what you're doing there, bud, but sure. But he told him the entire scheme, and then was like, hey, I'll give you, like, $500 out of this, like, scheme.
Yeah, he promised him part of the money if he could help them get, like, because the guy in jail knew a person that
knew, like, a
them.
shady lawyer.
Yes.
That could get them that payout.
And so he said, I'll give you a pay cut if you give me the name.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he actually, like, double-crossed a lot of people.
I know, but this one really hurt him.
Yeah. So, essentially, he got bailed out, and when they set up this, like, scheme, he never found a cadaver. He then decided to just kill Ben.
Apparently his reasoning, because he kind of set himself up in Philadelphia, and he called himself an inventor under B.F. Perry.
Yeah.
I remember that. And apparently the only reason why, and he states this in his book, he was like, I didn't want to have to kill him because he was the closest thing to, like, a real true friend, but he's an alcoholic and he has pretty loose lips, and so he was afraid that he was going to get drunk and spill the beans to everyone.
Right.
And so
he was getting, like, a little suspicious.
Yeah, so he was like, I need to take care of him fast before he spills anything and ruins our entire scheme. Right. So basically, there was like I think it was a house on top of the shop or something like that he was at, as the inventor.
They had, like, a whole, like, setup for this. Like, it wasn't just like I'm gonna change my name and then I'm gonna be this.
No, like, they had a whole background story. They
even had, like, the facility. Like,
oh yeah, because they bought a bunch of properties and stuff like that. And I believe the person that actually, well, I was gonna say the person that actually lived there, he died. He was actually left downstairs dead, and that's how they found him.
Yep.
Yeah. But basically, h.h.h. was home alone. And he was drinking. He was very drunk, and Mr. Holmes came over while he was really drunk, and I believe he poured chloroform down his mouth.
He knocked him out with chloroform first, like a rag.
Yeah, but then he
poured it down his throat,
and then he tied his hands. Actually, I have a word-on-word confession from Mr. Holmes himself. Yes. I will read it to you because actually it does tell how he murdered. So he says in his confession, only one difficulty presented itself. It was necessary for me to kill him, speaking of Benjamin, in such a manner that no struggle or movement of his body should occur. I overcame this difficulty by first binding him hand and foot, and proceeded to burn him alive by saturating his clothing and his face with benzene and lighting it with a match. So how horrible was this torture that in writing of it, I have been tempted to attribute his death to some other humane means, not with a wish to spare myself, but because I fear that it will not be believed that one could be so heartless and depraved, that the least I can do is spare my reader a recital of the victim's cries for mercy, his prayers, and finally his plea for a more speedy termination of his sufferings, all of which upon me had no effect.
Well, he wanted it to look like that it had been like a accident. So he wanted it to look like there was an explosion.
Yep.
And so that was like his intent. it didn't look like that at all, and the police and investigators knew it.
The only thing why that they still let it go for a little bit is because they didn't actually have full evidence, because they couldn't test. They the only reason they found chloroform in his system is because there was enough.
Yes, they had it was so much chloroform that they could
identify it. Yeah,
if he had used just a little bit,
just a tad bit less, they wouldn't have been able to identify that it was chloroform, which is crazy. But it also makes sense for that time, because they didn't obviously have the technologies that we do, that we could be like, oh yeah, that's chloroform. We only need a drop, and you'd be able to tell that it is.
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously, remember, this is the 1800s, so they late 1800s.
So they're just starting to get certain things. I mean, they didn't even have profilers or they didn't have things to sample, test blood or something like that, right?
I think in the documentary, she was like, you could only tell that it was blood because you're looking at it, and
and you can see this is blood just because of the texture and everything like that. But you couldn't tell whose blood it is unless you saw it coming out of that said body.
Yeah. So they had very limited means of identification.
They did, and those detectives were putting overtime to get these people. So, it continued. Didn't just stop there. Because this is all a scheme to him, and he's thinking more ways.
The thing is his wife didn't. She thought this was still part of the plan.
Oh yeah. So when he died and it came out in newspapers and everything, she just thought the plan worked. Right. Okay, so she had no suspicions.
And she collected the money.
Yep. And it was, and then Holmes, because he's a master manipulator, he convinced her to bring into custody of the 3 kids of the 5.
Right, and he was kind of like, oh, because Holmes and Peitzel, they were very close, and he was very close with Peitzel's family, and so he was looked at as Uncle Holmes.
Yeah, almost Godfather type thing. Creepy. And so he convinced to at least allow the 3 children to kind of just get away from it, and so till it all died down and stuff like that, because it was pretty traumatizing, because the younger kids didn't really understand, but the older ones did. Right. So yeah, he convinced them to be in his custody, and they were Alice, Nellie, and Howard were in his custody. And unfortunately, so they traveled throughout the northeastern United States, and
into Canada.
Yeah, and the oldest one, Alice, she would write these letters to her mother every day, kind of just telling what's going to happen, and saying when can we come home, when can we come back. Life isn't really that great out here with Holmes, and
saying the weird things, and
yeah, he's saying she's he's being a little weird, we're not really liking this, when can we come back. But actually none of those letters ever got sent.
No, and in some of them she would be like, well, why haven't you written me back? It's been a long time.
She's it's been 3 months now, why haven't you written me back anytime soon? And
well, Holmes never sent them.
I was gonna say, she never got them, so that's why there's no reply.
And he was lying about where they were going to.
Oh, yeah.
Because, master manipulator, he just lied about everything in his life.
Yep.
To Carrie, what Holmes had told her before the kids had left was what she was going off of. And he was kind of just lying and being like, yeah, this is what we're doing, all this stuff.
And what was even more messed up that I just remembered is that as they were traveling, him and the kids were traveling, he was sending her to Holmes parallel, sometimes even within 5 miles. And they had no idea that they were that close to each other. How? That's just nasty.
So his whole plot to this was essentially to just kill the 3 kids. Oh, and his current wife had no idea.
Oh yeah, no.
She had no idea where he was, what was going on with this whole situation, everything like that. But he actually confessed to murdering Alice and Nellie on October 25th in 1894. So he forced them into a large trunk, and like that's not uncommon, like having a large trunk like that. That's how they
when
carried their belongings.
Yeah.
So not weird that he had that at all.
No, but the way that it was made was weird.
Yeah. It's very specific. And he locked them inside, and then he drilled a hole in the lid of the trunk and put one end of a hose through the hole, attaching the other to a gas line, and asphyxiated them.
Yep.
And then he buried their nude bodies. Nude. Keep in mind, right?
Yeah.
They are 13 and 9.
Yeah. There was some saying that there might have been some foul play beforehand.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He buried their nude bodies in the cellar of his rental home at 16 St. Vincent Street in Toronto.
Yeah, he went all the way to Toronto for this one. Like, he was literally going everywhere that he could. And then with the trunk, he lined it with some sort of substance. I can't remember if it was a metal or like a liquid substance that he painted it with to absorb and to like not let the odor of blood seep out.
Yeah, and he buried them in very shallow graves. Like, he was getting sloppy at this point, and he didn't really care. He just tried to get rid of them.
Which was funny because when he was in that prison, when he was arrested, he witnessed a man getting, hung. And he even said, he was like, I'm deathly afraid of that. Like, he's like, I would not want that to be my fate. He, like, it kind of, like, woke him up. He's like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So that's, like, it was kind of ironic to me that then all of a sudden he's just like, nah, I don't care.
Right, he just got real sloppy.
Yeah, but then he still was never like, oh, I'm gonna get caught. Like, no. He was shocked that he got caught.
I'm like, well, there was that company that was like, they have never not caught somebody.
Yeah. And that was their motto. You go, guys. You go, guys. I was like, and they really did it. They really did do it.
Yeah, they got him.
Oh, yeah. Did they ever?
Yeah, so they lived up to their word.
They got him. They really did. The little boy, sorry.
Yes, we'll go back to that.
I feel like some people forget about the little boy, and I'm like, don't do that. No. He deserves to be recognized.
That was sad. That was even more horrific than what the girls went through.
So, in Indianapolis, Holmes also rented a home there. And
rented. Keep in mind, all of these, like, renting and, like, paying for things are, like, hypothetical.
Oh, yeah.
Because
so, like,
he never really paid for anything.
No, and he just, like, left them behind with these dead bodies. Which is really weird. They did, while they were on their search for Holmes, retracing his steps, they found a little boy's body in a oven.
He poisoned the little boy's food with cyanide. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So he poisoned his food and ended up, like, incapacitating him or killing him immediately then with his food. And then he put him in an oven.
Yeah,
and burned him and left him in there.
Yeah.
He burned him with wood and corn cobs. Why?
I don't know.
What's with the corn cobs?
Probably because they're like easy to burn.
They are flammable, but like, also, why do you just have corn cobs?
Well, it's Indianapolis, so true. I'm sure there's probably a cornfield right behind their house.
True. Yeah, but
I don't know. Easy fuel? I have no idea.
Holmes was reported to have visited a local pharmacy to purchase the drugs, which he had used to kill Howard on October 10th, 1894. And a repair shop to sharpen the knives he used to chop up the boy's body before he burned it.
Yeah.
What, this boy was like, what, 10 years old?
No, he was younger than that. Yeah.
He was a 7-year-old boy. First of all, I'm going to question Carrie's parenting. I mean, I understand that, like, he put out a facade of who he was. I was going to say,
when he was, with them while they're all still alive, and with their father alive, like, he was probably just seen as, like, a regular charismatic man. Yeah.
Uncle Holmes.
So, I mean, she wasn't really happy to be separated from her kids, but she got convinced by him so much that saying, like, this will be better for everyone for it to die down, especially because, like, we're supposed to be a grieving family.
Yeah.
But no, I do question her a little bit, but then at the same time,
how was she supposed to know any better?
Yeah.
But, like, you would think because, Benjamin was like, we're pulling off this scheme, like, all this kind of stuff, you would think that, like, he's a crook. He's not that trustworthy of a person if he's pulling off an insurance fraud, so it's kind of like,
I think it's because she trusted him so much. It's because
she trusted her husband.
She didn't even know he was really dead. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
And she's probably seen them do this before, and it obviously, since it wasn't her actual husband, she believed that like he wouldn't do anything because they have done this before.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's just kind of like. But then it also says here that the boy's teeth and bones were discovered in the Holmes chimney. Mm-hmm. That's just so sad.
I know.
That is so sad. So Holmes eventually got arrested in Boston on November 17th in 1894. Mm-hmm. So it was like about a month later.
Well, yeah, because okay, so back to the guy from prison again. This is why we said this was his downfall. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he never paid that money that he was promised, and let's just say someone decided to then just become loose-lipped and tell him everything that Holmes told him.
I mean, it honestly could have been like, "Hey, I'll give you information on this, like on something, if you give me a lesser sentence."
Yes, but the thing is, like, he was also really angry that he gypped him.
Well, yeah, I mean, he double-crossed two people.
Oh, yeah, so. And the thing is, like, it seemed like you don't double-cross that kind of guy. Like, he seemed like...
no. He was a hardened criminal.
I was going to say, the way that they described him, it was kind of like a, you don't mess with this guy.
No, I mean, he was known for robbing trains, and he had a long career. I mean, he was serving a 25-year sentence when he met Holmes in prison.
Yeah.
So... And like he was a household name. Like people knew him, and they feared him.
They're like, okay.
So like for Holmes to like cross him, it's kind of like you messed up.
You messed up, dude. So yeah, they got a little tip that so and so with the whole fake death. So they went to go investigate the place that he told, and they found Pitzel's body. Mm-hmm. They weren't quite certain that this was an accidental. You know.
Well, because they were pretty sure that there was foul play, which clearly there was, and we know that today, but...
Especially when they tested and got chloroform coming back from the, reports.
Like, high levels of chloroform. Mm-hmm. That's his first mistake. He was caught in Boston on November 17th in 1894, because he was tracked there from Philadelphia. Think about this. They literally followed his entire track.
Yeah, it was, his name was Frank Geyer.
Yes.
The head detective.
So he worked for Pinkerton National Detective Agency, which their slogan was, I don't remember exactly what it is.
I'll put it up.
Something along the lines of like, we will not stop until they have been caught, kind of thing.
Yeah, they had a really good track record. They've never had a bad time catching someone.
They deterred or intercepted is a better word. They intercepted an assassination attempt on Lincoln.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that. So like they mean business.
They were like
they're on
top
their game.
Of the top, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that they caught him.
No, because like he literally traced the steps and all the places that Holmes had traveled to.
Followed like the entire path, like from wherever he started to
wherever he ended up.
Like all the way through Canada, like every step of the way.
Yeah. And then they also went to his castle. Mm-hmm. His murder castle. Mm-hmm. And the things they saw, because mind you, no one's really ever been in there to investigate. They've always been in there and usually not coming out.
Yes, exactly. It really confused investigators because it is set like a maze. So, and the only one that knew how this maze worked was Holmes. So when they went in, like, investigate, it was very, like, disorienting for them, which is good for Holmes, because that was the purpose of his second floor. Was to disorient and confuse.
But they found the trapdoors.
They did. His human chutes.
Yeah, his human laundry chutes. Yeah. But then
they're more like trash chutes to him.
Honestly, yeah. Because like he didn't care about those bodies once they were dead. He just knew they'd get cash money.
Yeah. Humans equated to money. When he looked at someone, he just saw dollar signs.
Oh yeah, he didn't see them as a human being. He saw them as a paycheck. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no. So then they went down to the dreaded basement, and that's where they couldn't hide it anymore. That's like. He murdered a bunch of people.
Oh yeah.
Okay, like there was human remains down there. There was bones. They saw all the chambers. They saw the torture devices. They saw his dissection table. I think on the documentary we were watching, majority of the detectives actually got sick from the smell and the sight of all the things that were happening down there.
Yeah. It was really hard for them to parse apart what things specifically were going to be used for, because they had a table that was like, there were knives covered in blood and it was worn. So they assumed, nothing was concrete, but they assumed that it was for dissections and stuff like that.
But when he was charged, he was only charged with the murder of Peitzel. Because of the so this is also, you had to be careful when you were giving the life insurance claims to these people, because you write how they died, and if it's anything but natural, obviously they're like, okay, we're calling the police. So when they found the chloroform in his system, they could no longer rule it as like, an accidental. So they connected the dots, and they arrested him for that murder, and then tried to get him to confess to all the other ones. So yeah, he was brought to trial on October 1895.
Yes.
Was when he was put on trial for the murder of Benjamin Peitzel.
Yes. So while the trial was going on, it was the equivalent of the big murder case, like the big serial killers of today.
Oh yeah, people were
like clamoring to get into this courtroom to like watch the proceedings. Yeah. Obviously it wasn't like, they didn't have like CNN, they didn't have television and things like that. So like it was contained, but like it got out.
I was gonna say it got pretty wild.
Yeah. I mean, because back then, obviously, it wasn't international news or like
but it traveled
countrywide,
quite far,
nationwide. But it was still a big deal because he did travel all over to do these killings. So
yes, and because it was such a new thing for pretty much everyone there, it blew up.
It really did. Yeah. When he was sitting there, he actually fired his counsel.
Yes, he became his own lawyer. Yes. And it reminded me of Ted Bundy so much.
Because I'm like, he knew best.
This is where you go wrong, though. And then he hired him back again. Yes. Because he realized, I'm not winning this.
Yeah, he's like, actually, no.
Actually, I can't do this.
Because he can't be wrong. And so he's like, if I hire them back, then
it's their fault for anything that happens. Yep.
Yeah. We just got so excited. So then, when they brought Carrie in to testify against him, she told, like, her testimony was about her kids and what he did to them, and she, read like a statement. It had every single person in that courtroom was crying, even the judge, like everyone was crying, but Holmes. Yes. And he sat there and he was just like,
and then his wife came in,
and then he started crying
because he was probably thinking, crap, I need to start acting like a human being.
Because I'm like this monster, I've done all these things.
And so as soon as she went on the stand, he started sobbing.
Yes.
Uncontrollably. Also, I will say, when Carrie was on the stand, they finally gave her all the letters that Holmes kept.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, it was actually really sad.
It broke her heart.
Yeah, she's like, that's my baby, that's my child.
Yeah, and she never saw them, saw them again. So Holmes was hung on May 7th of 1896.
Yeah, 9 days before his birthday.
Yeah, sucks to be you. In Moyamensing prison.
Good job, buddy.
Thanks. I really strung that
I don't know how. Yeah, that was
Moyamensing. Yeah, okay. Actually, what I think is kind of crazy, when he saw that man be executed before, it was an omen.
I feel like he was seeing the future.
He was seeing himself being hanged.
Yeah, and because he even said, he's like, I would not want that fate of that individual, seeing him hang like that. I'm like, well, that's gonna be you, bud.
Yeah, well, he had a special request before he died, which is ironic. So he requested that he be buried in concrete, in like a deep grave in concrete, so no one could dig him up and dissect him.
Yeah.
Even though he's
the one who did that to all his victims.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
yeah, it was just like, it was really ironic that his biggest fear was someone would make him a spectacle and come up and grave rob him and like study him and like open him up and stuff like that after death. And I'm
see
like,
what made him tick.
Yeah, and I'm like, but that's what you just did to all of those people. Apparently, when he was hanged, he didn't die right away.
No, his neck did not break.
No, he strangled to death for 15 minutes, twitching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry about it.
And when he was standing on the platform before they actually dropped him.
Oh, sorry.
He did make a statement. He had one last thing to say, and he actually rescinded everything that he said.
Yep, he said that all of that was a farce. You know, nothing of I said is true. I have the devil working in me, so anything that ever was done was from the devil.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay.
Okay, dude. I'm also shocked that they allowed his request for the burial.
Yeah, I would have been like, no.
Yeah, no. You barely even, you're lucky you even get a grave. And they actually did end up opening it.
They did! Zoomed his body, to make sure that it was actually.
Like, yeah, and they found that his clothes were almost perfectly preserved. His mustache was found to be intact. And that he was not decomposed naturally. But yeah, no, then this led to some speculation, and some people were like, oh my god, he's not even dead, you know, he even faked that death and stuff like that. Someone said that he, like, manipulated his way out of it. I'm like, no, guys, seriously.
No, he was, like, dead.
They were there. Another big thing, okay, so obviously there's always speculations with each case, especially when they're so, you know, long past. And there's, I really had to force that word out.
Yeah, you did. So long past.
My brain was shutting down. Because, like, obviously as years go on, you know, little sprinkles, it's almost like, you know, playing telephone. The longer it is, the worse that, you know, the full story is going to get. So, like, you know, people sprinkled in all the dramatics and everything, especially back then, because, you know, they had to get their buck.
Yep.
Some people argue, like, is he a true serial killer, or is he just a guy that killed? Because, like, how could he not be a serial killer in a way? Like, he showed all the signs mentally.
Yes, but at the same time, like, his motive for killing them was not to get a psychological thrill of killing somebody. It was, they make me money. He was more of a con artist than I would say a serial killer.
I mean, he did enjoy his killings.
He did.
Used to watch them. Yeah, he loved to watch them die. Yeah.
But I think it's a gray area.
Well, you could say his MO is women and children.
Well, yes.
And I feel like it could be a testament to, like,
but that's not a MO.
When they don't want to stay with him, he's like, I can just get money for you then.
Yeah, but that's not an MO. That's more of a victim characteristic. But his MO was more of, like...
His MO was money. In a way.
I think he was just greedy. Like, that's all he wanted was money.
Well, yeah, he always used to state, like, my money's mine, no one else's. I don't want to spend it. I mean, he literally gypped out getting his shoe polished one time and said, oh, I left my wallet at home, I'll pay you back. Never did. And he's like, well, because that money's mine. He's very territorial of his money.
I would say his MO is, like, it's just money oriented, and that's all he wanted. He didn't care. Like, yes, he took pride in his killings.
He had a fascination with dead bodies and seeing how much pain they can endure.
But it was the fascination of, like, oh, I'm killing somebody, but I'm gonna get money after. That was his end goal. He was
very money hungry. Yeah. He is one in his own right.
Yes.
Like, especially because of the amount of people he killed. You know, which that's also another speculation. Some people go, he killed 4 people, you know, 3 kids and Benjamin. And then some people say he killed up to 300. I'm like, okay. 300 is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. I mean...
He killed quite a bit. They found so many bones in his basement.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, that's just in the basement. That doesn't include the ones that he sold.
Exactly. Like, I wanted to see if they would ever pull up any records of how many bodies he ever sold and what schools, because then maybe you could try and count how many he sold.
Yeah, but he would take
records.
But I remember the documentary said that he would remove any identifying characteristics off the bones.
But I wonder if, like, you could find any of his aliases and around, like, find a pattern of where he would, like, sell it to.
Right.
That's what I mean. Like, you see how many times he sold something to someone.
Well, because you can't trust his word, because he confessed in his like autobiography to like hundreds.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he would say, "No, I only confessed to these 4," and then no, I confessed to all of these, and blah blah blah. So like he would change his answers all the time to whoever was listening.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very hard to get anything remotely concrete out of him because he was a con man. That was his life. He just lived and made a living on lies.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. There is people try to say that Jack the Ripper and H.H. Holmes were the same exact person.
Or related in some way.
Yes. I call bullshit.
There's no way. No. Also, because, like, mind you, they were happening literally simultaneously at the same time. If not,
I liked that. Just
it was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Only time
it's ever, helped us.
Yeah.
I need to stop with my ass. They were happening around the same time, give or take maybe like a few months or something like that. But they were happening literally the same year because he was, obviously Jack the Ripper was the first
serial killer
in Europe.
Yeah.
Well, at least
London.
Yeah. And he was getting big. Like, he was getting blown up because, like, no one could find who the killer was. And people in America were actually scared that he was going to come over to America and start killing, which I don't think he ever did. Obviously, we'll never know.
I don't think so.
No. But I think that, Holmes heard about this and he's like, hey, I'm going to one-up you. If you guys were scared that he was going to come here, I'm going to be your Jack the Ripper,
Pretty much.
So.
I don't know. I don't think it could be... They're not...
No. Didn't even have the same styles, didn't have...
No, because... I mean, obviously they both killed women, but I feel like women are the victims of a lot of murders.
He would take he would take organs from them.
Yeah.
And body parts.
Yeah.
Ripper, not Holmes.
Yeah,
Holmes
yes.
Just,
hence his name.
Jack the Ripper. Yeah.
That was also good.
Thank you. I like that. He would kill women of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sheep. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. They called him Jack the Ripper, but you never know. It could be a woman.
Be Jacqueline the Ripper. I'm gonna excuse myself.
No shot. That was awesome. We're also really sore because we spent the day shopping, like Christmas shopping.
Oh my gosh, I don't advise anyone to go last minute Christmas shopping unless it's an emergency.
Yeah, no.
Episode for Black Dahlia is part 1 is out on Spotify.
Yes.
Next week part 2 will be out. Don't think we're gonna be filming this coming week.
No, just with Christmas coming up.
Yeah, so I think the week of yours?
I thought you were gonna say New York.
I think I just had a stroke. New Year's, there probably won't be anything for that week because this one is coming out Christmas week. Probably not going to be any episode for the first week of January. Wait,
do that again! That was so intense and I loved it! That pretty much concludes this video on h.h. Holmes.
H.h. Holmes.
Yeah, Holmes.
This is the Christmas episode, so Merry Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate.
Yes.
I know there is some...
Happy holidays, I guess. We'll just say happy
holidays.
I was gonna say, we hope you enjoy your time with family and friends.
Yes, or, if you like spending, the holidays by yourself, I hope it is joyous as well, no matter who you spend it with.
Eat good food.
Yes, have good food, have good cookies, whatever desserts you like. Comment down below any fun traditions you guys do for Christmas. Or, what's your favorite Christmas cookie?
It's gotta be either, like, the sugar cookies that you can decorate, or those pecan squares.
Ooh, okay.
I love
I thought you were going to say the snowballs, to be quite honest with you.
I love them, but I'd have to say the pecan squares.
We make a bunch of, really, good German cookies. Spritz cookies are my favorite. If you like dark chocolate, you would love these.
I don't.
Or butter cookies. Oh, they're so
good. But anyways.
But yeah, sorry. Comment your favorite cookies.
Yes.
I love learning new cookie recipes.
Yes, she's the baker.
Yes, if you have any fun ones that I'm
the consumer.
Because I've also started trying to make sourdough. Successful loaf. It was a successful loaf. Sorry. But it was successful.
It's the sorry, but
it was very successful, and I'm really proud of myself.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Sometimes it takes failures to make something great.
That is true. Mm-hmm. That was very inspirational, Kiersey. Good job.
I wish I could buy that.
I know, me too.
Advice. I want that clipped. That is my advice.
Okay. Damn.
Yeah. But we hope you have the happiest of holidays.
Yeah.
And stay safe, stay happy, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Deuces!